map to go in the wall to hurl. A stick in a shinty bowl, the brick, the brack, the crack, and all. Let's call it an Irish pub. Caffrey's on, Kilkenny, a pub, the Guinness, pint, the cabbage, crap, the I don't want to be paddy trapped. We'll call it an Irish pub. While I'll be fucked to
Welcome to episode 1 of the Pubcast. My name is Brendan O'Neill, and I would normally be joined by Mike Cross and Michelle Riley. But in these first few episodes, we are revisiting our previous podcast, Boardwalk Breakdown. Basically, we're shutting down the Boardwalk Breakdown podcast and moving those 13 episodes over here so we can keep them alive and well in our archives. So, the Pubcast is our new podcast where we'll talk about all kinds of stuff and not be limited to only talking about Boardwalk Empire. And it will actually begin on episode 14. So just consider these first 13 episodes as bonus content. Sláinte. Welcome to the Boardwalk Breakdown podcast featuring Michelle Riley, Michael Cross, and me, Brendan O'Neill. Basically, we're fans of the HBO show Boardwalk Empire, providing some analysis and silly commentary. If you have any comments or questions, you can contact us on Twitter at Boardwalk Break. Enjoy the show. Alright, season 3.
Let's do this.
This is where
we rolling?
We're rolling.
We're
tape.
always rolling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
not always, but
Jeez, the lost tapes for real.
Wow.
All right, season 3, all I have to say is holy shit.
Alright,
Chip.
this is when
Chip blew my mind.
I would say, and everybody would say, sort of a carryover from the finale of season 2. This
Right.
is when Nucky is in full gangster mode.
Yes.
Season 3 premiere takes place on New Year's Eve, 1922. By the way.
Yep.
Yeah, we fast forwarded a year or two.
Yeah.
Chip has to be the craziest introduction of all time.
When he kills that guy trying to help his team get a tire back on his...
I mean, just violence. Violent, oppressive,
For no reason.
offensive, devastating. The guy is just totally crazy, and his performance is mesmerizing.
Let's just say on the list of characters that are compelling,
Oh my god!
he is definitely at the bottom.
And there's a part
He's
of
at
me
the
that
top
would,
and the bottom,
would
right?
see him and just have dread, like, oh, this is going to be just a shit show. And then the other part of me was like, this guy is so committed to the crazy in him.
You can't take your eyes off him.
You can't take your eyes off him. I mean, I actually looked it up, and he did, in fact, win the Emmy.
Yes.
Thank
and
God he
rightfully
did.
Oh,
so.
yeah. That's... Time out. I want to back up to that for just a second, or fast forward to that in time, I guess. We're in season 3. I'm going to talk about season 4. Boardwalk Empire, not involved in any of the Emmy stuff this past week.
Right.
I mean, I think they won 1 or 2 for, like, set design or
set
something.
design
Yeah.
or costume
Who
design.
cares?
Doesn't matter.
Well, they do, but yes.
Listen,
Well, as far as I'm concerned,
I don't want to hear about that.
Well, everybody's
Steve
into
Buscemi
Game
should win
of
every year.
Thrones, and everyone's into
Game of Thrones
I don't
and
watch Game of Thrones.
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad was a swan song situation.
they got a lot
Fuck
based
you.
on that. It was, Breaking Bad.
I wouldn't know.
Great.
I didn't watch
Fine,
Breaking
great,
Bad.
but it was
Epic.
a career achievement award. I mean,
It really was.
at least
I don't know.
people from this series Boardwalk Empire should have been nominated. I don't care who wins.
Well, Chip blew
For
my
fuck's
mind,
sake.
and he was nominated and he
And
won.
won.
Yeah.
And the thing that's crazy is when you think about him being Vince and Will and Grace, and being a cop.
I don't even know what you're talking about at this point.
Bobby,
I
how do you
remember.
say his name? Cannavale?
Cannavale.
Sure.
Forgive me, Bobby, if you're listening.
I don't
but-
remember that.
Well, he's a handsome devil. I'll tell you that right now. And he played Will's boyfriend towards the later
Oh,
years
son of a bitch.
of Will and Grace.
I never watched Will and Grace,
He
so I
was a
couldn't attest.
cop. How could you? Okay,
I
what?
did watch it, but I didn't see that.
Will and Grace was like one of my all-time favorites.
I don't know. I think I had given up on sitcoms at that point.
Well, I say you go back and revisit because you
I
won't be
may have to do
disappointed.
that. We'll do a podcast.
Newsies.
There you go.
Right on. Anyway, Chip was just horrible. He's hands down one of the most horrible people on the face
horrendous.
of the earth. He's pure aggression. The physicality of the actor really, he was scary. He was just scary, and he would, like I said, cause me anxiety every time I get him on the screen because he was just purely aggressive in an oppressive way, in a nonsensical way. I mean, clearly the character was not smart.
Yeah.
And obviously he had
Well, that's the
issues.
thing. The guy is helping fix his random guy is helping fix the tires on his sort of
right.
mobster caravan.
Right.
And he makes a comment here and there about the kind of tires or what's wrong with his car. And Jip just doesn't understand. He doesn't know what he's talking about because he's not smart enough to get it.
Right.
He loses
He
it.
thinks the guy's disrespecting
You know what it
him.
reminded me of? And I hate to do this to you, but it reminded me of Shawshank.
Oh, yeah.
Obtuse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He clearly didn't understand the
Totally.
word, and so he lashed out.
That's totally what he is. Shawshank!
Shawshank rises
reference,
again.
Thank you. Well, it also speaks to a later point when Nucky finally
Son of a bitch.
getting way ahead. Nucky makes the truce with Jip,
Mm-hmm.
and he says "Bone Fortuna" to him instead
Right.
of "Bona Fortuna."
Yeah.
Pronounces it incorrectly, being that of all things Nucky he is not Italian,
Right.
and he pronounces it incorrectly, and Jip, being the most fucking lunatic, insane person on the planet, takes it as a slight instead of someone who's not Italian who doesn't understand how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those subtle moves within the series where you don't know if Nucky did that to be disrespectful on
Right,
purpose.
Right.
So you have to gauge it for yourself.
That's right, Michael.
And it makes Jip lose his mind, right? I mean,
But
because
the
it doesn't take
guy's
much to make Jip
batshit
lose
as it
his
is.
mind.
I mean, he's clearly lost his mind before we even see him.
Well, I don't know that he ever had it.
That may be true. But really, I mean, Jip is really what Season 2 is all about. And Tabor Heights
Three.
is where it's... I'm sorry,
Right.
Season 3 is all about. Tabor Heights is really what it's all about.
Jip
It's
and
the
his
land
blockade
grab.
at
The blockade
Tabor
at
Heights
Tabor
between
Heights.
New York and New Jersey.
And it was a smart move, but he had to both infiltrate the Chicago and New York camps in order to make this work. Obviously, that was a futile attempt, but
Well, it worked for a while.
It worked for a while, but the whole season is really based on how things play out in Tabor Heights.
Yeah.
We have some issues with Van Alden going to Chicago and what happens with the mix and the Capones.
So I want to talk about that in particular.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched on the Chicago.
I've done a little bit of research on Dino Banyan, and the way he's portrayed in this series is fucking bullshit. And I'm taking that as an Irishman in defense of our Irish gangster assholes in this show.
He is portrayed as kind of...
So speak.
He was Capone before Capone. He was... I mean, physically, he was much different. He wasn't this big, lanky, idiot Irishman. He was a little more squat, a little more heavy, rounder face, kind of balding, a little more of a presence than the character on the show.
Right, who's quite slim. And,
Right.
yeah.
That's a different kind of a guy.
Right.
I think the guy who plays him is...
No one
I don't
cares.
know. No one cares.
Sorry, no, we all care.
I care, though, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to see him again. And so he was Capone before Capone. He was much more charismatic. He worked with the press. He was like the
mayor.
He was the mayor. At the time, the people in the area and the political establishment and the cops and whatever knew what he was doing. Basically, they could never pin it on him, but he was an acceptable evil. You know, he benefited the community in an illegal way.
He was Robin Hood.
Effectively, I mean, not quite as nice.
Yeah, not as glamorous as that. But
He was a bad element, but was not sort of over the top with it until Torrio and he got in a big battle and then took over the town for the Italian side. So I have that was hard for me to take because I know this character a little bit better. I'm like, they're missing an opportunity, but I think he just plays a role.
Right,
in the show.
It was
to
a
move the
setup.
story
It
forward.
was a
Right.
setup to move the Capone story.
So we got to follow Capone's rise. I mean,
Right,
that's
because
the
that's
gist of it.
really the story.
Right.
Although, side note, this did remind me of the Ben Affleck movie where they do the heist in baseball.
No, kidding.
The Town.
The Town.
Town, great movie.
Because the Whitey Bulger character in
Yeah.
The Town was a florist,
What's
and
his name?
so was the O'Banion character in Chicago was also a florist.
Yeah. Now, that was real.
Right, they were both. Well, the
The
town
O'Banion.
was a facsimile of Whitey. I don't think it actually was.
Right.
Whitey.
No, I'm saying
No, the O'Banion character.
O'Banion owned
was
Schofield's florist shop. And we'll get into this maybe. I guess we can do this. It's later on in the season, but so he is. Remember when the Italian gangsters come in, effectively nameless gangsters, doesn't matter who it is. They came in and they grabbed his hand at the florist shop. They grabbed O'Banion, shook his hand, saying they wanted flowers for whatever event, and held it there and then shot him.
Yeah.
That's in
Exactly how it
Chicago
happened.
lore. That's the
That's what
famous handshake murder.
Right.
They shook his hand and shot him so he couldn't get away. And that led to the St. Valentine's Day massacre. But so in the weeds in that, I think Van Alden is
Yes.
down below or but behind in the
He's
back of the flower
he's in the
shop,
weeds, yeah.
sort of aware that this is happening, doesn't do anything, and he is sort of a bystander.
Opportunistic
He's
about
an
it.
accomplice
to
slash
this very famous
bystander,
murder.
right.
Yeah. So all that was good. It made sense. But that was a real deal. Was the Schofield flower shop was there? It was actually across the street from a church too, which had some significance to O'Banion in some way, and it was a whole
Irish
Chicago
Catholic,
Irish Catholic.
Yeah, it's probably
Irish
the
cat.
funeral found
So-
funeral and wedding flowers.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to season 1 or season 3.
3.
Jesus.
So Chip just goes
Chip.
on a freaking rampage
Yeah.
trying on Tabor Heights. Then Alden goes to Chicago. Eli finally gets out of jail. And what's
I thought that
gonna
was the most interesting thing of the early part of season 3 was Eli's relationship with Nucky, who he tried to have killed,
right.
and now he's out and trying to suck up to Nucky and find a place back in the world. That was wild.
And you do see Eli a little bit with his own family and just see the dichotomy there of him trying to play it straight with that wife who wants to believe that her husband's a police chief and that her brother-in-law is a frickin' whatever he is. What is he? He's like what is he? He's like a county commissioner? or
He's
something?
county. Well, he was
Treasurer or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, she of course annoys me because there's also sort of a storyline that filters into season 4 with Eli's oldest son going to college. But,
Right.
Yeah,
I don't think it's
but
crazy.
you're right, Brendan. The Eli sort of trying to figure out how he's going to be after he gets out of jail.
Because I wouldn't think
It takes several
the
episodes.
gangster Nucky would overlook that. I thought he was more cold and calculating than he turned out to be.
Well,
I thought he would.
Well, he also needed him.
He eventually
He
gets
needed
there,
him.
but yeah, he needed
He
him.
needed him at the time. That's where
That's the pragmatic
you have
part.
to become savvy when you're watching the show, and that you have to start to understand that every move is done in a calculated way. So he didn't kill him doesn't mean that he wants him alive.
That's
it just
right.
means that he needs him alive right now. And that's kind of an overriding theme throughout the show is everyone's making chess moves with people's lives based on the necessity to have them around.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Nucky is not thinking in a passionate way of, this is my, the same blood courses through our veins.
Exactly.
It's, I need him around for a while, so I won't kill him now.
Yeah. I felt a little bit, although it's not a one-to-one comparison, I felt a little bit of the Michael Fredo relationship.
Yeah,
Totally.
for sure.
I think there's a huge tie there.
I mean,
right?
it's definitely there's a hint of that in the favored son versus the other guy.
kind of the
And in
lost soul, the
Right.
wandering soul of the family, right?
And in this season, Nucky definitely floats away from Margaret.
Yeah.
But he gets that other girlfriend, and she's doing her thing with the women's clinic and all that
Right.
other stuff. But he seems to me to be sort of using Eli's family as a way to get what he's not getting from Margaret, which is, let me be nice to these people, let me be a patriarch here, let me help these poor little fuckers since their dad was in jail. And it's feeding his it's feeding his
Ego.
need to
It's feeding his ego massively,
right?
right?
And his need to be seen as a good guy,
Well, I think he, you know,
and keep that family thing intact.
One thing about him is, as a character, is that despite the fact that he's as calculated now after season 2, he's this full blown gangster. He's still a guy who wants to feel like he's important on a personal level to people, right?
Yeah.
He needs that to feed his ego, to feed his...
And it helps him feel like he's okay. It makes him human. He says, well, I can't really be this bad of a guy if I'm doing this.
Totally
for this,
humanizes him
for this
as a
family.
person.
Right. But, you know, one could argue that sort of hypocrisy is the worst way to live anyway. But... Anyway, the Eli relationship is complex, and it's really, really fascinating. I actually think season 3 is the most balanced in the way that the war is portrayed between Chicago, New York, and Philly a little bit, and Atlantic City, and the way that sort of all plays out. And then Jip is just the wrench in the whole story. I mean, he is a catalyst, and he is... obviously a clever way to tell that story, but he is bananas. I mean, the most aggressive, most egregious.
When he beats that priest,
I mean,
violently beats that priest.
I mean, significant.
He's in everyone's business.
Yeah.
From the get-go. He wants a piece of everything. He wants to take people out and take over their operation, no matter who it is.
He wants the whole apple. He doesn't want to bite of it, right? And that's God, I mean, this was such a great performance by him, and unbelievably
I like that
he
he portrays that sort of confidence and that sort of I'm the man mentality, but then when you see him in his home life, or when he's with Mazuria or whatever, he's a peon. He's a soldier. He's not a general at all.
Well, and to equate it to any of our sports fans who may be listening, he's like the Dexter Manley of the gangster world, right? He's the guy who's sitting there reading the Wall Street Journal, or pretending to read the Wall Street Journal while he can't read. Right? He's Dexter Manley. He is totally putting on a show, and but the only way he knows how to act on that to exercise that power is through violence. Yeah. So this guy
people that are that violent are overcompensating for an incredible amount of insecurity.
Yeah, deficiencies, insecurities. I mean, he's reeking of those, but he's so compelling in this dramatization of this person.
I mean, he's gigantic on the screen. He's absolutely amazing.
Definitely larger than life.
Yes.
Right? He really stood out on the show from the second he came in.
Flavor to the show.
Yeah. He owns the whole season.
He really
does.
That character.
And I'm trying to think if... I mean, this is stupid, but I think that I maybe was pregnant during this season.
Yeah, probably.
And I don't know if it was me.
The emotion,
hormone. But I mean, this was a thing where I was like, I can't watch it. I can't
get up.
I got a lot more squeamish about violence since I got pregnant and since I had the baby.
That's funny.
Than I used to be.
That's
but
good.
I just can't. I mean, it was exhausting to watch Chip because you're like, God, you're a maniac.
You know, on another level, and I know probably Buscemi doesn't feel this way because he's such the quintessential professional, but how would you feel if you were an actor on that show who had been there for 2 or 3 seasons, and here comes this guy who just absolutely...
He's a freight train.
Wrecks everything. He absolutely dominates the show. He takes over.
He dominates the show.
I don't know that you could get away with that character with many actors. I really don't. I mean...
No.
Well, the truth is, I don't know how I'd feel if I was one of the character actors that you described, but as far as Nucky goes, I mean, he's got to be slow and steady. I mean, he's
never going to change
of the story, and he's he's not getting killed anytime soon, you know?
Well, he's not, I mean, he can't change his personality. I mean, he can shift. He can have his shifts from half gangster to full gangster. He can take baby steps to becoming the animal that he is.
There to be
but
the
he's there,
of the story.
He's there. But how do you feel let's look at it from the outside in.
But you know
as an actor, I'm an actor, I'm on this show, I have a good part, I'm Chalky, right?
Oh, I love
I'm Chalky, who's a great character who we haven't given a lot of, we've given him a little bit of time, but we haven't given him a lot. You know, he comes in big in season 4. But how do you feel if you're Chalky and you've done epic performances in season 1 and season 2? Season 2 particularly is when he kicks into high gear. And then along comes Jip in season 3, and he just rolls over. He steamrolls everything.
I
He's
think
so
it's a
dominating.
testament to the actor.
Well, it's a testament to the actor. I mean, every freaking preview in season 3 was Jip.
Yeah.
He's a maniac. I mean, and he dominated the storyline.
Well, I think everyone could see sort of when, I mean, I assume when they were handed the scripts or when they saw him perform, he was the candle that burned twice as bright but half as long.
Right.
He was coming in like a fire.
I don't know how long you could sustain something like that, right?
And but I mean, in the arc of this series, I mean, they may not have known it was only going to season 5, and may not have realized when the end was, but the end was not far after season 5. If it was going to be longer, right?
6,
right? So everyone knowing the arc of the way these sort of dramas go, the middle act. Act 3 in a 3-act play or whatever it is always where the most conflict happens, the most ass-kicking happens in the middle, right? So this was effectively the middle, depending on how you want to cut it. And they knew someone had to be that guy.
I also feel that, I mean, to take out the performance in and of itself, there is an arc. I think that this season was one of the most perfectly balanced in terms of the story and the writing, because basically you had to have an epic force, Jip, to be able to bridge that gap where Rothstein and Nucky were going to come together to shut him out.
I don't know if it was the most balanced.
Because there had to be a big reason to sort of gang up on this dude and take the whole New York situation.
Because the last, say, 3 episodes were so intense and so much violence. 3 or 4, I don't, maybe even 2, where the war was happening and Capone teams up with Chalky and they are fighting in Nucky's stead, effectively, and taking out Mazaria's guys and taking down or chopping the legs out of Jip and whatever. The last quarter of that season is just a firefight.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the first 3 quarters balance it off that well. It's
well, what do we get? I mean, at the end, what did we get? We got, I think in the final episode of season 3, we got like 67 kills in the final episode.
I mean, Jip is dead, Nucky wins the war, and Margaret leaves him.
Well, and I mean, it's very, I love the prophetic nature of Jip's end in, when he gets stabbed.
Yeah, I mean, it's full-scale war in Atlantic City.
But it's very the end of it's very Shakespearean.
It is, with him getting stabbed.
With him taking a leak and then,
taking a leak and then getting 2 shots to the stomach.
That's the Atlantic City part.
Right.
The Shakespearean.
It's I love the whole arc, and as much as I was disappointed that Jip was dead because I wanted more Jip,
I couldn't take any more.
I think we got as much Jip as we needed to get.
I could not take any more.
It's and I don't want to jump off into other shows too much, but like Homeland, I don't know if you guys watch Homeland, but he needed to die, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
he had to go.
He had to go because he had run his course, right? I mean,
he had done his thing.
How much more of this can we possibly take? Yeah. Living on the edge of our seats, wondering who's going to, what poor nun is going to get whacked by Jip.
He served his purpose.
At him the wrong way.
And one of the things that this season does pretty well is set up for lack of a better term, the next generation of gangsters. The Meyer Lansky, the Lucky Luciano.
Luciano.
They start trying to find their footing. And
the arc starts going there, right? I mean, you start seeing the tilt, right?
They start
the Jip thing
doing a heroin operation.
Yeah.
Right.
Now we're associated with Mazzaria or not, or it's a whole thing.
Well, you get into that whole shift in the gangster world,
and they're above their heads too. Like
they're way out of their league.
They can't
way out of their league at this point. And they've got the ties to Arthur Rothstein, Arnold Rothstein, and they've got the drug thing, which at the time was a very new flavor to the gangster world. And
touched on in the Godfather films.
Yeah.
At roughly the same time.
Right about the same time, right? And that was just a new introduction, and how the old guard didn't want a part of it, and the new guard was going to do it no matter what the old guard wanted, but they were going to do it behind their back. And there's conflict there that you're going to see come to a resolution in a bad way, right?
Yeah.
Right, because it always does. And just kind of I thought the end of season 3 and blending into season 4 was very well done, and it season 3 really set the table nicely for season 4.
Yeah.
We got our third act,
Yeah.
which is, you're right, that's
The
always
violence,
the catalyst act in any given play, right? It's where the most drama or activity happens,
Yeah.
and then it leads us right down this path of kind of a steady dose of violence, anger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it just worked.
And then I want to touch on a couple things. Margaret takes up with Owen again,
Yes.
sort of extending that relationship. We kind of know where that is heading. Then, Michelle, you mentioned that Margaret's sort of putting her time and effort into the sanitary conditions at the hospital, and that's a whole
Right. She
tangent
really
off of
pours
there.
into that.
Yeah.
The kids get involved, and
I didn't like that
exactly
arc,
there.
by the way.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of it.
I wasn't.
I think at that point we had too much Margaret, right?
Yeah.
I think
So,
they
yeah,
were
too.
trying to force
Yep.
feed us Margaret, and it needed to kind of die down.
It sort of parallels, though, then Capone and the couple of insights into his little home life and his deaf son and how he handles that, and he's not great with it.
No.
That's a whole thing. And then we get into Nucky and Owen
Yeah.
plan the move against Mazaria.
Yeah.
Right.
Owen's sort of a key character at that point.
Right. He's definitely acting as some sort of sidekick, conciliary, something.
Right. Is it this series or is it season 4 where they go to Ireland and they find that big cache of whiskey?
I
You
think
remember
that's
that?
3. No, it might be 4.
Oh, and they bring it back.
Owen was involved. I think doesn't Owen die at the end of the season, right?
Yes, he does.
So it's got to be during this season where he goes to.
They go back to
I'll say Belfast. I don't know. It's. I think it's Northern Ireland somewhere. There's a whole. Nucky finds a new source of whiskey, not having to rely on everybody else. And
They
got
trading
this
guns.
Of,
Yeah, that's
right.
when they were trading guns for whiskey.
He's got the guns from left over from the war. Nucky goes and finds this ammo depot with all these guns and stuff. And of course, I think Mickey Doyle's there, and he makes a mess of it.
Of course, Mickey
That guy's a
Doyle's
maniac. He's secretly one of my favorite characters.
He's so annoying.
He's always there.
That
He's always
voice.
fucking up. That little, like, maniacal laugh.
Yeah, he does. He has like a cartoonish laugh.
I think in a different series, that actor and that character could be a whole thing. I think that's very good. All right. Margaret becomes pregnant with Owen's baby.
Yes.
That's a whole thing. Sets Nucky off eventually when he finds out. What maybe the most interesting temporary relationship is when Eli brings Capone back from Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Nucky's sort of very vulnerable. He's in this lumberyard trying to sort of regroup. And
Yeah.
figure out what's happening. Fight his battles.
That was very curious.
Eli brings in Capone.
Yeah.
And it's Capone and Chalky who are the defenders of Nucky and Eli. That was really interesting. These two sort of, at the time, underlings fighting the war for these big shots.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah, because at that point, Capone is really not the centralized
He's not the guy
character
yet.
that we are.
But he didn't hesitate to suit up for that.
not Nucky. Capone is almost like Jip in that he's quick to violence. Like,
Right.
As soon as something turns bad, he's going to throw the first punch. He's in. All right. Basically, Chalky and Capone massacre Mazaria's. I can never. Mazaria's men. Too many Italian names.
we need some Irish people.
That's right. I can say Murphy just fine.
Yeah, Murphy. O'Connor.
If it starts with an O, I'm in. But
Yeah.
on that. And then Richard.
Richard.
He takes Tommy away from Jillian. That's
Yes.
that's the whole kid
That was the
connection
that
I
was,
don't like.
I
mean,
didn't.
I get it, but I don't like it. He takes Tommy away and gives it to his new girlfriend Julia and her
and that
family.
really
the
solidifies
Sikorskis.
that relationship. Yeah.
Solidifies it, and it really humanized him in a lot of ways because
He's
we
saving
had
the
seen
kid
him
from
as
the
this
maniac of Jillian. Yeah.
This hired killer.
We knew he was an okay guy, but that's all we had seen him in is situations where he was being used for sharpshooting skills.
Yeah.
So this really did kind of humanize him in a lot of ways. I thought they overreached with that arc.
I think so
that
too.
arc, but
I did too. It didn't really move Nucky's story forward.
But what it was leading to was the end of season 4 when he has the bloodbath, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think they were teeing that all up by using that as kind of like
and they were. I mean, in terms of teeing it up, they were definitely trying to show how invested he was and how close he was to normal life.
How real it was to him.
Yeah,
right.
And then that made his commitment in the season 4 to doing what had to be done even stronger.
Right.
Because you knew what he was giving up.
So, all right, and then to wrap up season 3, and this is all big stuff that we're going to hit in about 2 minutes. And so it's an hour worth of talk, but Nucky uses political connections to settle a score with Rothstein. Richard gives Tommy. We talked about that.
Right.
Rossetti then meets with his remaining 2 or 3 henchmen on orders from Nucky. Jip's guys stab him to death while he's taking a piss on the beach, which is amazing because there's a Nucky tie to Jip's death. Nucky finds Margaret, and they end the relationship. It's over, supposedly.
She's off to Brooklyn, right?
She's off to live by herself with the kids in a small apartment. And
toil in anonymity.
Yeah, back to reality.
Only to be touched, right?
And then while he's now lonely, everything he had is gone. I mean, there's no Margaret, there's no Jimmy. Eli that's a whole different relationship there. He is now retaken in Atlantic City. He's back to being a guy.
He is at this point turned into quite the sociopath.
Right.
You know, he has gone from a guy who is trying to cling to any kind of a family, kind of a relationship-driven world to I'm the boss and I'm going to get shit done.
And I think at the end of this season, you see it like that. I mean, most clearly that he's most concerned with power. I mean, he needs to be in charge.
He's a power
and if
hungry
he's
guy.
not, then it's a problem.
Right.
and now he's back in charge.
Right.
Teeing up season 4. Sorry for the abrupt end to the show, but for the first few episodes where we recap each season, we recorded them all in one sitting and needed to break up the discussion into consumable, bite-sized pieces centered around each season. Thank you for listening to the Boardwalk Breakdown podcast, and follow us on Twitter @BoardwalkBreak. Future episodes of this podcast will focus on a single episode of Boardwalk Empire.